Throughout history, there have been military leaders who etched their names in the records of glory, but only a few managed to become a nightmare for their enemies. This is the story of Hannibal Barca, the man who nearly brought down the Roman Empire, leading an army across mountains, snow, and forests to strike fear into Rome's heart. This is the story of the greatest military genius Carthage ever produced, and the tale of his dramatic downfall. Hannibal Barca was born in 247 BC in Carthage, the great Phoenician city that controlled vast parts of the Mediterranean. His father, Hamilcar Barca, was a brilliant military commander, but he died with a deep sense of regret. He had fought a bitter war against Rome, but was unable to defeat it. Before setting out on one of his campaigns, Hamilcar asked his young son, Hannibal, to place his hand on an altar and swear an oath he would never forget. "I swear that I will be an enemy of Rome until the last day of my life." Thus, Hannibal grew up hating Rome. He was not just a military leader, but a man carrying a personal vendetta against the most powerful empire in the world. After his father's death, Hasdrubal, Hamilcar's son-in-law, took command of the Carthaginian forces. However, he was assassinated in 221 BC, leaving Hannibal as the supreme commander of Carthage's army at just 25 years old. Hannibal had no intention of peace. He knew that Rome would never allow Carthage to rise again, so he decided to strike first, and strike hard. He attacked the city of Saguntum, which was under Rome's protection. Rome saw this as a declaration of war, marking the beginning of the Second Punic War. But Hannibal was no ordinary commander. He had the boldest military plan in history. A plan no one expected, one that shocked the world. When Rome wanted to invade Carthage, it planned to do so by sea, but Hannibal decided to do the impossible, to invade Rome by land. His plan was insane by all measures. He had to lead a massive army of 90,000 soldiers, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants through some of the most dangerous terrain in the world. The icy Alps, frozen rivers, rugged paths, deadly avalanches, and lethal frost. This was not just a military challenge. It was a near-suicidal mission. His soldiers suffered from the freezing cold, many died, and most of the elephants perished. But Hannibal did not back down. After weeks of struggling against nature, he descended into Italy with a battered army. But it was an army ready to make history. In the years following his arrival, Hannibal repeatedly crushed the Roman armies, but he reached the peak of his glory in the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC, which is considered one of the greatest battles in history. Hannibal faced a Roman army of 86,000 soldiers, almost twice the size of his own forces, but his military genius turned the tide. He positioned his troops in a way that deceived the Romans into attacking the center. As the Romans surged forward, he encircled them from both sides in the largest military ambush in history. More than 50,000 Roman soldiers were killed in a single day. This was the greatest defeat in Rome's history, and Hannibal's name became a nightmare in the minds of his enemies. The Romans even told their children at night, "If you don't sleep, Hannibal will come and eat you." After Cannae, Rome was on the verge of collapse, but Hannibal did not march on the city. Some of his generals wanted to attack immediately, but he refused, waiting for reinforcements from Carthage. Yet Carthage betrayed him. Meanwhile, Rome was rising from the ashes. It reorganized its army, began adopting new tactics, and found another brilliant commander named Scipio Africanus, who decided to take the war to Carthage itself. After more than 15 years of fighting in Italy, Hannibal was forced to return to Carthage to defend it in the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. But things were different this time. The Romans had learned from their mistakes, and Scipio Africanus was prepared for Hannibal. The Romans used anti-elephant tactics, rendering them useless. They had stronger cavalry, allowing them to outflank the Carthaginian army. In the end, Hannibal was defeated for the first time, and this was the beginning of the end. After Zama, Carthage was subjected to harsh conditions, but Hannibal did not surrender. He fled to the east, moving between kingdoms, attempting to form new alliances against Rome, but he was constantly a target for assassination. In the end, after years of pursuit, when Roman forces were close to capturing him, he refused to be taken alive. He drank poison, ending his own life in 183 BC, and spoke his final words, "I will not let the Romans decide Hannibal's fate." The lesson from the story: how ambition broke the greatest military leader, Hannibal was never defeated on the battlefield in Italy, yet he lost the war due to a lack of political support and weak alliances. Rome did not win by strength alone, but through patience, adaptation, and learning from its defeats. Genius alone is not enough. Internal support and strong alliances are what make great leaders. Hannibal was an exceptional commander, but he faced an exceptional enemy. And despite everything, his name remains immortal as one of the greatest military minds in history. And so, the legend of the man who terrified Rome ended, but he did not bring it down.